Good morning, 2024 Salary Commission. Thank you for coming and volunteering. This is one of those committees that really kind of flies under the radar and doesn't get a lot of the credit that it deserves, but I appreciate it. This is a really tough piece discussing salaries for elected officials. I served 2 terms on city council where I grew up, and always discussing our own salaries was a hot button issue. So we appreciate you stepping in on behalf of the electeds and taking a real thoughtful look at this. We're going to go through kind of an organization of you folks into the actual commission, and then begin looking at what you would like to do, how you would like to have staff get some research done so you can have some thoughtful discussions. We can get everything done on time. We can dissolve the commission, and everybody can get back to their fun-filled lives. I'll get into some of the details kind of step by step. Taking roll, I'm doing a visual here that everybody's here, but if some of you are getting to know each other real quick, if we can start over here on the left and have each of you introduce yourselves to each other, I think that'd be a great way to start.
I was trying to figure out who's left,
Sorry.
That's you. You're already speaking, Rob. Go for it.
I'm Rob Rembert. I've been a lawyer here for 20-some years, I think going on 28. Been active in various boards, commissions, not like Joe, but you know.
I'm Karen Sires. I was a city employee for 39 years, HR manager for the last 20, I think, something like that. Anyway, very happily retired and enjoying the freedom of doing whatever I wanted to.
So Joe Pitzer, real estate, and then I've been on the hospital board for 28 years. So this is my second term at doing this. So.
Hi, Allison Montrotolo. I served on the school board for 13 years, did a little bit of this kind of work, but I don't have extensive experience comparing salaries and things. I'm looking forward to learning. I also serve on the city's Historic Preservation Commission.
Rick Grunwald, and I retired from WSU, worked there for about 40 years, and differing roles in accounting type stuff. I'm not a CPA, but I did work in the budget office for 12 years and payroll for 10, well, more than that, years. So had some experience with salaries, but it's always a kind of a new thing, so.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Accountants of the world unite. All right, so going through our agenda, just the first item up here is just an overview of the commission, the ordinance that got this started in the resolution. I don't want to belabor this an awful lot, so I'm going to go over it kind of at a really high altitude, and if there's any questions, we can dig into the deep part. If you look at the way that the commission was set up, there's a lot of reference to the 2022 piece because it was kind of fast and furious, and it was the first time, but after that piece, things kind of settle into a regular piece. So it's the 3 folks that are sitting over here, this is their second time with it. We thank them very much because you can only serve twice consecutively. It means you're going to have to take 2 years off before I invite you back. And the folks over here, first time, getting a chance to learn from these. There's going to need to be some carryover to the next group, so we'll bring you along just as well. So the duties and the powers, primarily, this is the most important pieces. So the mayor and city council don't get into these weird discussions about salary in front of these things, and it's done really from a technical standpoint, just like the rest of our budget. So the importance of you folks being here, I can't underscore it enough. So thank you again. There are ways that if this salary commission makes a decision the community doesn't like, they can go through a referendum process and have that challenged. So I don't want to get into the details of that because it's pertinent, but it's a little bit outside of your purview. But if you would like me to walk you through that at the next meeting, I can go through that step by step. But I wasn't really planning on doing that today. But at the end of our time together, really it comes down to, should the salary stay the same? Should the salary go up? Or should the salary go down? And there's mechanisms for all those pieces. So it's up to us to get you the information you need so you can have a thoughtful discussion and come up with your decision to give to the clerk, which needs to be done by the end of July according to ordinance. Now, the last time we did this, we got kind of a little bit of a late start, so we extended that. But I think you guys would like your summer off, so my goal is to get you done on time or sooner. Oh, and I'm sorry for those of you new, interrupt me. Otherwise, I just won't stop. I'll keep talking. I have no problems with interruptions. Okay. Are there any questions at this point before I touch on some of the next items?
Do the new salary schedule, is that effective January 1?
That would be, yes, effective January 1. And, that's a real good point too, Rick. Just a little recap of where we've been in the past on this. When the Salary Commission was first started, the council members were making $550 a month, and the mayor was at $1,000. This Salary Commission, it met in 2022, moved the council, based on the research, up to $800 a month in 2023, and then $1,000 a month in 2024. They moved the mayor up to $1,500 a month in 2023, plus incentives, up to 3 incentives of $100 each for every board or commission that the mayor sat on externally that brought value back to Pullman, such as the Association of Washington Cities board, the Benefit Trust, which is part of our medical insurance, Transportation Improvement Board, those all qualified. So the mayor was also a member of the Spokane Community College Board of Trustees, but that was not considered a benefit to the Pullman organization per se, even though it's a benefit. And one of the items that the Salary Commission also did at that time is made the council the decision-making on, okay, is this a board of benefit or not? So if there was any question of it, the council had that final say. So the mayor's salary had a floor of $1,500 and a ceiling of $1,800. And so Mayor Johnson hit the $1,800 with his ceiling, and Mayor Benjamin started with the floor of $1,500. And as he gets on these more state or regional type boards, like the airport board doesn't count because the mayor of Pullman is on the airport board by the operating agreement. So that was considered part of the base salary because that's part of his regular responsibilities. So I over-answered your question, but I apologize. Okay. All right. The next agenda item is selecting a chairperson and secretary. Chairperson will run the meetings after this. I will slide back into staff advisory. So amongst you, Karen served as chair last time for this. And I'm trying to remember, Robert, no, I don't think you were secretary.
Wasn't Dee the secretary?
Dee was secretary. So Dee will take the minutes from this. That's why we're recording, so she can do her piece. So, yeah, a chairperson.
Karen, would you be willing to do it again for us?
No, but
I
I do
second.
nominate Joe.
I don't think I'm a good qualified person. I was thinking Rob would be good, and then we bring one of the newbies on as a secretary.
Well, I told them all before you got here that last person here, whoever sits closest to the middle, maybe is the person. So
Yeah, I noticed
I'm
you
just
guys
saying.
sat far away. whatever.
Joe it is.
Joe it is. I second.
Sure.
Okay, so a motion and a second. All in favor for Joe Pitzer being the chair?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so you get the rest of the meeting kind of off. I'll keep you going through the piece, but
Sounds
I'll
good.
probably ask you for the adjournment.
Thank you.
You got it.
So
And
I
we'll-
do need somebody to volunteer for the secretary position. Are we doing D again, or, okay,
I'm going to encourage you to
Allow her
appoint
to
our
be-
city clerk for that,
Perfect.
so it takes some of the pressure off of the volunteers of this group.
sounds good.
And since we're recording the meeting, piece of cake, I have a few boards and commissions that the meeting's not recorded, and then I do insist one of the members do that because staffing that on a regular basis becomes problematic.
Wonderful.
Terrible note taker, but if it's recorded, then I don't mind doing it.
One of the things we're also doing right now is we're testing some software, some, word is escaping me. I don't want to call it dictation software, but it takes the audio, takes the names, and gives us the full deal. So if you wouldn't mind being the secretary for official sign-off on things, I think we really like to continue testing it, and you can review everything before signing that off. So if there's a volunteer, that's, I guess you could volunteer yourself, and that'd be considered the motion.
I so move.
Okay?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's been carried.
Outstanding. You guys are well on your way.
Oh, are you guys on again? So, yeah, turn them on. and just leave 'em on.
Transcription. All right.
We try this about every 5 years.
Okay, so the next agenda item here is the, just really more of an overview of what happened last time to set the table and then give the board a chance to discuss how you'd like to proceed going into the 2024 process. You'll see I attached a lot of details, including my October 26th memo for initial research, as well as my lovely, lovely spreadsheets that staff and I worked on. The ordinance for the city council as to what they do, and the ordinance for the mayor as to what they do. So one of the things that the board did last time too is they asked one of the senior council members and the mayor to come in and talk to the board about their job and how they're performing, and not so much as a performance review as like understanding how much their role has taken into that. And that's certainly something we can do as well. Get that scheduled, so not unusual if
I
that's
think that
something.
would be good to add that in. I think we found that useful to see the breadth of what they're actually doing.
Yeah.
So with the board's permission, I can start working with them on a couple days, but I want to base that on your meetings. Obviously, the mayor, that's easy. I know who that is. And the 7 council members, though, last time we had Councilmember Wright come out. And as far as seniority on the council goes, it's very close between her and Councilmember Weller, within a month or so of each other. So if there's a preference on that, or if you'd like to ask one of the new council members, I mean, or trot all of them out here, we can certainly do that as well. So something for you to think about. I don't expect a
Any
decision
thoughts
today.
at this point in time?
Well, I think the more senior members would be more appropriate.
Yeah, although it does kind of make me wonder if there's a difference as far as level of activity between a more senior and a more junior. But
I would love to get Weller in here.
I think Weller would be fine.
And then if we wanted to grab a junior member, that would be,
Maybe one of each?
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's fine. I think it's just information. And you guys are going to want that to draw back on next time. So,
For the benefit of the group,
Yeah.
just as an FYI, and I think this might accomplish what you're trying to do, is the mayor pro tem right now is Pat Wright, and the alternate mayor pro tem is Eric Fajarin, who's one of our brand-new council members. So would it make sense for me to invite those folks, since you're getting both of those pieces, and as well as the council has elected them to serve as their representatives in case of certain.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Okay, excellent.
I have a question.
Yes.
As far as, for the council members, is there a difference in salary, or do they all get the same?
They all get the same.
Okay.
In the old way, when they had to vote on their own, they couldn't vote on their own salary, so it would take effect after the next election, and if they won election again, then they would get the higher, and there were times where some of the council members were getting paid one amount and the other ones were getting another until those positions were, so this kind of reset the work. But yeah, it's not based on seniority, not to say that it can't be if that's what the Salary Commission decides, but I think you'll find through the research, most cities don't do that at a council level. Okay. All right. So we've talked about the organization. We've talked about that piece. So I think the best thing now to do is spreadsheets. So, and here's the advantage. And everybody received this. All right. There we go. Come on. Morgan, why won't my spreadsheet stay up? Thank you. Thank you. All right. So, the advantage in 2022 versus the disadvantage today. Because we got a little bit of a late start in 2022, the Association of Washington Cities, which is our trade association, they do a lot of research on our behalf, they do our insurance and a lot of other things. One of the things they do every year is a salary survey for everything, you know, from my position down to this, as well as elected officials. We just received an email yesterday that they're getting ready to roll out the salary survey. Won't be done until the end of June. So because we got started late last time, salary survey, our work was a little more minimal. There was still a lot to be done, aggregating, doing things, and finding some extra pieces, but a lot of the calling around was already done. So what you're seeing here was based on that salary survey, and kind of based on a population. You could see Yakima was at the top because it was Eastern Washington, but it's darn near 100,000 people. But you see a lot of West Side cities in there too, and everybody knows we have a different economy than the other side of the hill. And all the way down into, I think we cut off at 16,000 people because right about there we got into some more West Side cities. So this was kind of the jumping off point for a discussion, alphabetical sort of that. And then we really kind of got into Eastern Washington as to which cities participated in that group, coming up with, okay, are these really our comparables? We often talk about comparables in our organization, especially when we're talking about bargaining units and negotiating union contracts. And then by the end, the Salary Commission had worked it down to our comparables, these are typically them, and they still are to this day, but a couple of the lower ones, the Sunny Sides and the West Richlands are starting to creep into the salary discussions when we talk about bargaining units. So this is kind of a long way of walking you around to say, we're going to need to do the research by hand, and we're ready to do it. We just want to get a feel for how big of a scope would you like us to look at. Is Western Washington, do you want some comparables citywide as far as population goes? Does Western Washington even play into effect? Should we focus just on Eastern Washington? And I got some data on that here I'm about to debut. You know, one of the things that we researched as well is like, how often is Walla Walla meeting? How often is Wenatchee meeting? So that would not come up in the salary survey, and we researched that separately. So,
Mike, can I ask a general question?
Yeah.
On the first chart that you showed, there were some cities that didn't participate in the salary survey. I'm just curious, are they members of the Association of Washington City, but they had their reasons for not participating? Or do you think they just failed to fill something out on time? Like, was it an objection, like they want to keep it private, or was it just they didn't get around to doing it?
yes. So,
All of the above.
so I could tell you from my own, and this is being recorded, so I want to be careful on that. There was 2 cities in red that I happen to know folks that worked at, and they were going through some transition, and getting the salary survey in was just a bridge too far.
Right.
And they couldn't do that. Another one was a strong mayor situation that, no, we're not going to participate in that.
Right.
We're different, we're we're special. Couple other ones where it just came down to time. They didn't get it in time. And one of the things that happened in the 2022 survey is they weren't getting things in on time. So AWC extended it an extra 30 days, trying to get some participation. Because I think some of these that did turn in, and I'm not privy to exactly which ones were, but some of them were like, oh, if we just had an extra week. Okay, we'll take the extra week, turn it in. And so they gave everybody an extension. But I think there's 1 or 2 of them I would be surprised to see on the list again for this year.
Okay. And I don't want to, I realize we were not affected by that if you narrow the sample down to Eastern Washington.
Yeah.
But I would have been curious if we had been, so.
Yeah, and I think, let's see, Bellingham, Edmonds, I thought I saw Arlington, SeaTac, and some of these things belong together. Some of these things, anyway, yep, those were the ones. So
Thank you.
And is this data 23, or do they only do it every other year?
they do it every year,
Okay,
so I just bring this, yeah.
yeah, that's good.
But I've got this right, though, that they're not anticipating the 2023 until June or something like that,
Yeah, this year's salary survey
with a July.
is due
deadline
at
for
the end
our
of
work.
June.
Right.
So if we see it in July, if they don't do a 30-day extension, we might see it in July, probably in August.
Okay, and that would be 23 survey? Or would it be 24?
It would
survey?
be the 24 survey based on the 23
Gotcha,
salaries.
gotcha.
Okay, right.
So, so the information that we have from last time is basically what we're using again?
So what we had last time was the 2022, which would be from 2021. Presumably, we would already have then the 2023 from 2022, right?
We'd have
Right.
22 from,
We'd have 23 from 22,
thank you.
but we wouldn't have the 24 from 23.
So we'd have more updated than we did last time?
When it came to this list, which is the one that was the basis of the discussion, this list we did, because it was small enough, we confirmed, is this the current salary today of these people? Because we're one of the few that have a salary commission on this side of the hill. So we were able to say, oh, yeah, okay, their numbers are, these are the current salaries as of 2022. So you guys were looking at apples to apples by the time you got to this screen, because we had that extra time to just call their finance folks and confirm everything. And, you know, oh, we're talking about raising it for 23. Yeah, that's great. What is it today?
Did you guys have a chance to look through the data at all? Did you know what you were looking at? I want to say that I remember going through the data previously, and my question is, can we cut it down yet, or should we go through the big selection and review and discuss? And I move forward pretty fast on things, but I'm
So-
not trying to rush anybody.
So from an Eastern Washington standpoint, let's start there.
There you go.
Does Eastern Washington a different economy than Western, or should we also be looking at Western as well? How do we feel about that? A certain amount of Western?
My gut feeling was not to look at Western, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I found the Eastern Washington and the comparables really the nuts and bolts,
Yeah.
because they're so much different in a Western Washington economy and probably how the council operates.
The only work that I've done with salaries before was school employees. You would be looking at what could this person be making in a peer community, an adjacent district, something comparable. So, yeah, I'm comfortable using,
I see consensus.
I do too, yeah.
Well, and particularly, I think it's probably achievable for staff to get good, hard data with our comparables in our Eastern Washington, where probably not if we're talking the entire list with diminished returns in my mind.
So
Right.
were any of the tri-cities, they were out of the population range, or,
Sure, let me
okay.
get to that. So now that we've taken care of Western Washington,
Yeah.
let's,
The only other thought was, I was glad to see Ellensburg on there because it's a university town, and I don't know if that really makes much of a difference. But I was thinking, is there any other university town that we'd want to?
Cheney,
yeah,
maybe,
Cheney?
Yeah.
maybe.
I didn't even think of that. I was thinking Bellingham, but that's Western Washington.
And it was red.
yeah.
So-
But we could certainly
Yeah, but
call
we
and
can
find
call
that.
them, yeah.
Don't lose that thought. I want to come back to it for a second because I think there's one other piece that we should discuss real quick, and you can give me some direction on too. So now that we've done this with Western Washington, let's talk about Idaho for a second. It's a kind of even though they're doing work and they're doing their things, they have a totally different playing system than we do, even though it's adjacent. But we didn't really take Idaho into account the last time we were meeting. And certainly Moscow's right there, Lewiston's just there. But once you start going north, then it gets a little weird. So I just wanted to bring Idaho up real quick for that. Is there some work you'd want us to do just based on that, or is it too much apples and oranges?
I think they're too different.
Yeah,
I agree.
There's too many
Disregard.
different laws and regulations applying to Idaho or to Washington that don't apply to the other.
And I see consensus on the board again, so.
Okay. Now, back to the university towns. So now that we're in central Washington, or eastern Washington, I have my list of demographics here. There's 72 cities and towns in eastern Washington with a population of 1,000 to Spokane. Spokane proper. Spokane Valley's in here too, but Spokane's the tippy top. And when you start talking about towns under 1,000, we certainly don't compare with those, there's no question. When you start to get to 1,000, that's not my place, it's kind of, okay, we can talk about this. So if, looking at just population, and there's a lot of other things that happen here, Pullman is, we're 9th in population in eastern Washington. So towns that you do not see above Yakima there are Spokane Valley and Spokane. And that those, I don't know if anybody's been reading about what's been going on in Spokane Valley. That's not us this week. They're having some growing pains, but they're over 100,000 people. And I think Yakima's over 100,000 by now. So I guess what I'm trying to bring to the group here is let's talk about upward bounds, let's talk about lower bounds. So I can get a good representation, get the information done, and then if you guys want to further bring it down, then we can do that at this point. So last time, the lower bound was set at Sunnyside at 16,000 folks. because the next lower one was East Wenatchee at 14, Cheney, Rick, Cheney, 12,000, Liberty Lake, 12,000, Grandview, 10,000, Airway Heights, 10,000, College Place was approaching 10,000, and then we're down into Toppenish at 8,000. So there are 7 cities from 8,000 down to 6,500. So are we starting to hit a lower bound that we're wanting to look at? Because you mentioned cities like Cheney. Cheney would, I guess here's the point I'm really trying to get to. Tri-Cities, Kennewick, Pasco, and Richland were
I would
just
say
right
10
there.
to 50,000. 10,000 to 50,000.
Okay. So if
Just
we were
throwing
doing
it out there.
10,000 for conversation, we're talking about College Place at the lower bound, but 50,000 is still below Richland.
Right.
Just a different perspective when we would determine comparables for collective bargaining, which is obviously a separate process from this, but you would take all those cities that were 100% bigger than you and 50% smaller than you.
I like it.
And so that's kind of where you come in. You would have Richland in this group, which from a city's perspective, you really don't want to include Richland when you're doing collective bargaining because they have a lot more money than you do, but you also have to be fair. I mean, you can't just say, well, we don't want them because they make too much money. And the bargaining units don't like Sunnyside. So there's kind of a balance in there to you get some that are higher, but then you also have those that are lower, then you can get not necessarily an average, but an idea on upper and lower.
I love that rationale, and I would like to, if we're continuing this work the next time around, I would love to be able to refer to a rationale like that.
Yeah, that would lift, you would wind up with Richland in here and Sunnyside.
Yeah, so you can see how Richland and Sunnyside, the high and the low got tossed when they got into the actual final piece, but it was still part of the discussion at this point. So,
And West Richland has grown significantly in the last few years because they were not in that picture before, but they've grown a lot.
they have grown quite a bit. So under the same piece that we're talking about, 100% would include Richland, because by then, now Pasco is way past us. Same with Kennewick, obviously. But at that 50%, we're down to Sunnyside, but I keep circling back to Cheney based on Rick's discussion earlier.
And I really don't know if that makes a lot of difference. I just thought I'd bring it up, see what you guys thought.
You guys want to put it in for now?
I think I would, just because it has some of the same characteristics. But then the rationale kind of breaks down, and so I'm,
If it pleases the commission, I would offer this as well. If we're going to go down to Cheney, we can include Liberty Lake, Grandview, Airway Heights, and College Place, and that'll get us all the way down to 10,000 residents. That's only 4 more pieces of research
Which is what you said initially.
for the initial.
Just playing devil's advocate, if there's somebody who wants to argue, they would say, well, if you're going to throw in all the lower populations, you should be throwing in at least the Pascos.
Right, that's why.
Right, right.
I
Because you're
kind of-
outside of a formula, you're saying, well, let's pick in these
Exactly.
ones that are below us in whether like, again, devil's advocate, so you can artificially deflate what you want to pay because they pay less, and then you don't want these people who are paying more and have a large population, so you don't include them. So there's no formula to do that? Does that make sense?
So I have a question. When we pick these, are we using a formula? Are we bound to what they're paying according to a formula? And
No.
we come up with what?
No, it's just how do you narrow down all of those cities
Yeah,
to
okay.
something that would be somewhat like a mayor or a council member would be doing similar activities in that community as they do in Pullman. Does a council member in Kennewick do the same thing that a council member in Pullman does? Maybe not. You know, they have similar problems, just on a larger level, maybe. But it's, if there's no parameter, then it starts getting, well, fine, you put in the lower ones, you didn't put in the higher ones. I'm kind of arguing from the collective bargaining mindset. You know, if I was negotiating a contract, I would say, well, I don't want you putting in the ones who are going to deflate that and not include those other ones. That's not fair. So if there's a, like you say, a fixed 50% or 100% above, 50% below, then you don't have to try to argue that you're trying to slip a low one in or you're intentionally excluding an upper one.
Sure. And absolutely, I'm there. I think having staff do the research on this group, whatever that is, and I'm about to kind of reiterate where I think you guys are talking, and say, okay, now that we've looked at these 16 people, we can really kind of look at getting to a point where there was 2 above and 2 below, and we've anecdotally understand what some of these other cities are. So I think what we're talking about now, based on this, is any city over 100,000 is probably not us. And I think Yakima is really, really close. I could check the current, but if we can agree that we're definitely not Yakima, but anything Yakima and below, which would include, yeah, because they were 96,000 2 years ago. I'm almost positive they're over 100,000 now, but Kennewick is not, but they're close. Pasco is not. We can certainly do this. And if we go Sunnyside down to College Place, that's 10,000. So 100,000 at the upper bounds, 10,000 at the lower bounds. That's 16 cities. That's not a bridge too far for staff to do the research, if that's what pleases the
As long as
commission.
there's an established, we're doing this, not just, okay, we're not going to take those lower ones, but we'll take the higher ones or the other way around. Just as long as there's something that's justifiable and you can say, well, this is what we did. I mean, we didn't pick and choose. We just, you know, had some parameters to follow.
Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. I'll get staff working on the research. We'll get some of these pieces again. And what happened last time is we put out a draft for everybody to look at, and that's when they came back and said, well, how many times are they meeting? How, you know, and then we went and did some more research, so that's how this is going to kind of go. But right now, I owe the commission an email by the end of the week saying, based on the upper and lower bounds, here are the cities that we're going to be looking at, and if you're poking around going, I wish we would have added these guys at the last, then we can certainly add one later, but that would grab Cheney and Ellensburg for sure. Okay. Right, that gets us kind of pointed in direction. And for everybody that looked at it for the first time, was there any column that you were like, well, where was this information? We didn't, I wish we would have had, just if it came to you, you're absorbing it for the first time, but if there was something that jumped right out at you, I'd want to make sure I add that right away.
Well, I just looked at the cities and the, you know, salaries and maybe the population and did some averages, but when I got over, and then I started thinking, well, okay, what's this assessed value? I don't know how that all plays in. And the, what is it on the very right? The cost of living index, I looked that up. So I'm not sure how that all fits into our discussion, but I mean, we'll get into that, I'm sure.
That's the beauty, is that we get to have that discussion and decide how it plays into Pullman. I mean, it's, each column kind of has its own unique piece to add to this, so. So that's what we will be doing next.
Okay.
And it's kind of important, because as we go through, we're going to hear, so how many meetings is the council member expected to, or committees are they expected to sit on and attend on a regular basis? And so some of those pieces really start to come into play, and you go, so they're busy 20 nights of the month. Okay. Or maybe it's only 4 nights of the month. You know, how does that play out, and salaries? And we try to get some information from the other areas on what all they're sitting on. And when it comes to the mayor, I remember things such as some city, the mayor actually was involved in like garbage services. Ring a bell? I mean,
Yeah.
and so, but fortunately, we're not involved in garbage services in Pullman. So there's going to be pieces that you look at and go, full-time versus part-time mayors and city council, how many are there? And, you know, what are they expected to do? And I guess even the city manager being,
And that was what I was going to point out too, like on the Wenatchee, which this has changed, by the way, now this year. Like Wenatchee had a full-time mayor, no city manager, no city administrator. So what's the workload on this person versus a part-time Walla Walla or Pullman? But just FYI, Wenatchee has a city administrator now. So they're doing things a little different. So this is part of the research that we're going to go out and have these discussions. And, you know, the cost of living index, that's one of my favorite ones to look at, because that kind of puts everybody on a more even playing base, but then don't get me started about how much I hate CPI as a indicator. I'm a pure economist from where it comes from. I think it's misleading, but nevertheless, the levy rates and those things. So when it comes to the assessed value, that's chance to raise property tax, to not raise property tax, collect property tax. You know, do these cities have more assessed values so they can get more property tax to run their operations? Where do we sit compared to everybody on sales tax revenue? Yeah, look at Wenatchee. We're half of what they are. So how does that compare? I even went as far, I didn't tell you guys, I went as far as to call a couple of grocery stores and see what they're selling a gallon of milk for. That's one of our family's favorite things to do. What's a gallon of milk in your town? So, yeah, it's where can I start? Where can I start? What can I eliminate that you feel like you have a good base to start with, have the discussion, and as Karen was saying, now how do we really narrow that down to the real, you know, final discussion where it doesn't look like we're trying to lowball or highball, and then all these things considered. So this is the first step. So I think there was consensus, Joe, on those 16?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, we had that. Is there any other pieces you want to discuss before we figure out next?
Nope, I just want to get my staff going on the research so you guys can figure out your next meetings, and we can give you a document to look at to start preparing, and if there's any additional columns that we want to see.
I had a couple other questions. What's our city's fiscal year? Is that January 1?
Calendar year, so yeah.
Calendar? And then, so this commission meets every other year, is that right?
Going into the budget process.
Okay. And then, yeah, just what can the city afford? I mean, do we have a salaries, benefits, budget that we have to look at as well, or?
I think it's reversed. I think we set our
So that
terms,
they can
and then the
budget.
city has to figure that out.
Okay.
So,
We do.
Makes sense.
We do. And these are some of the discussions that we will absolutely get into. Is there a pot of money sitting there that's just growing untapped that we could take care of some of these people?
We're
That's
just
called the
talking
lucky
wealth
problem. That's a
transfer.
Pasco, Kedewick. They got lots of stuff coming in that, you know, I make no bones about it. One of my best friends, still to this day, was the guy that worked here before me, and I talked to Adam Lincoln regularly over in Pasco, and last year in his budget, he hired 100 new staff. And we had to grind for 2, so it's different worlds. But these are the discussions we will be having down the way, and that is an absolute perfect thing to bring up at that point. Can we afford a massive increase like this, or are we in the right spot at this point? And yeah, that's up to staff to figure out too. And everything plays, it's all on a sliding scale. So if we do this, maybe I can't buy a new 3-hole punch, and I'll just finally get myself onto electronic documents, which I should have been doing a long time ago, those types of things. But I don't expect anything to be that extreme.
We also had a discussion last time about the cost of living index where city council members and mayors were not, the salary that they were going to get from that position was not going to be supporting their family. I mean, that was something that was in addition to that, so if you were looking at that as a full family support, that would be a little unrealistic as far as how that goes.
You're not going to meet your median home
Right.
price
No.
through
No.
city council.
No.
And- Well, and I think that
Or
that's
even
one of the
$300 or $400.
struggles, is these salaries, when you look at them generally, really are not reflective of the time and talent,
They're
the
not a
labor that
salary,
they
they're a
put in.
stipend.
Exactly.
And
They're-
so many of them are not in it for the money anyway.
If
Well,
you
wouldn't
are,
be.
it's a
Yeah.
poor choice.
Yeah,
It's not there.
yeah.
You know, and that's a good point too. I'll create another column as to, I think like Spokane, some of these folks, that is their primary, but that's not an Eastern Washington type of thing. That's a Seattle thing. That is my full-time job being on city council. We're not, no way. We can't do, that would be a problem, hiring 7 new people and the mayor at full-time salaries. That means there's some really hard decisions that have to be made, but, okay. Okay, I got some research to do. We'll get after it, but if you'd like to talk about, when do you guys want to get together again and start having these discussions?
I think the best would be to put out another opportunity to meet scheduler.
Doodle poll.
There you go, doodle poll. Is there anybody gone at any point in time over the next, I'll just say 3 weeks?
I'm gone the week, spring
First
break,
week
the
of
school
April?
break. Yeah, April 6th through the 13th.
And I'm gone the week before that, which is,
I love the enthusiasm. There's no way I could get the research done before that anyway.
right? So, I mean, next week.
Kind of worried you a little bit there, didn't you?
You know, just depending on how much you can pull together, I don't know if you guys have any dates.
Might be better after Easter for me, which is the 31st, I think.
Yeah, and since
So it'd be
you're
like
gone the
third
first,
week in April, it looks like.
so it'd be
Yeah,
the second
right.
week of April, correct, Rob? You're back?
Yeah, I'm back the
8th?
14th,
Oh, so what week are you gone?
the 6th through the 13th.
6th or the 13th? So we're, the first week, 1st through the 5th, we're open?
Yeah, but I think looking at Mike and the work that needs to be done, I'm thinking the week of the 22nd to the 26th.
Yeah, could I just double check? I think you mispronounced the 15th through the 19th.
So there's an opportunity there. I'm gone the 16th through the 19th that week, so.
Yeah, yeah. What about the week, Monday, the 22nd through the 26th?
I'm available.
That's the best.
So no
week.
question, I could have my work done by then. No
So-
question.
Sounds good to me.
So basically a month break and then,
So a doodle poll for, let's talk about the 23rd through the 25th, because I don't want to get you guys here on a Friday. That's just mean. Or do you want me to go Monday as well? Is Monday an option? I just know how you're retired.
I never know what day it is
Every,
anyway.
every day is Saturday. Okay, I'll send out the 22nd through the 25th. Is there a preference for mornings, afternoons? Would it be best like this, if this is the last thing I have to do for the day, Mike, and I go home? I'd really appreciate that. What's the feel?
Mornings is better for me, but I'm flexible as well. I'm just picking up grandkids if I'm
Flexible
not.
too.
Morning is fine, but I'd prefer it like first thing in the morning, not in the middle. if that
first thing, 8 AM, 9
would be
AM?
great.
Okay.
Anybody else?
No, that works for me.
Okay, I'll send a few slots in there, and if I don't hit the right tone, please send me a note and say what we can do. I'll probably put in too many slots, just so we can get a good feel for this. But yeah, 22nd through the 25th, we'll kind of focus on the morning, earlier and all the times going in there. And yeah, we'll get the research done. Anything else you'd like to see on the next agenda other than just some data points to start talking about and a presentation along some of these things and why they were chosen?
Did we want to do the city council and mayor
You want to do that at that meeting too?
I think let's just pull it all in, and to me, I think it's just going to give us more information quicker so that
Right.
Good.
the meetings we don't end up with 6 or 7.
With your permission, then I'll just include them on the doodle poll.
Yes.
Okay. Outstanding. I'll put back on there too, another agenda item too, for picking a future date based on how far you guys get in the discussion, if you want to start making it regular, and we don't mind doing the doodle polls, not at all. If that's what works best for the commission, absolutely, let's do that. Okay.
Any further business for the day?
I don't think
I
so.
don't think so.
Motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Here we go.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Great meeting. Hey, Morgan, can you?
How'd we do, Morgan?